Well, finally, some good news out of Sacramento. This week, the governor signed that bill we've been talking about the last few weeks on these weekly updates, transit bill that allows for $36 million to come from Sacramento back to the city and county of San Francisco, to our Metropolitan Transportation Agency, back to Muni. This $36 million will offset the proposed $78.3 million the state was poised to cut from the system. Do not forget, this system would be running a surplus had it not been for the state cuts, not just those proposed for the next fiscal year, but just think $179.1 million that's been taken from this system from the state of California in the last 3 years. But finally, some relief, some good news. 36 million is not the full 53 million we need to completely plug the gap for next year's budget deficit, but it's enough for the current fiscal year to offset any premium increases in terms of fares and to begin to substantively, and I mean substantively, address service cuts. Not just again for this year, but moving into the next fiscal year. It doesn't solve all our problems, I'll repeat that, but substantially begins to address them in a way that I think will bring people together and make people feel more confident about the fate and future of our public transit system. But I want to just thank Speaker Perez, I want to thank Senate Pro Tem Steinberg, and thank the governor for signing this bill and working collaboratively together. It proves what can be done when folks put aside their differences and focus on the goal at hand. And the goal here was to restore at least some money back to cities and counties and transit agencies, not just ours and the Muni and the MTA, but also throughout the entire region and throughout the state of California. Good news for transit advocates, good news for riders, and good news certainly for those that believe that an environmental paradigm, in order to be advanced, must be advanced by getting people out of their cars and getting them into public transit and reducing our greenhouse gas emissions, at the same time creating an economic framework where we can move people into downtown areas like our own San Francisco downtown in an efficient and effective manner and get people back home throughout our diverse community, throughout our diverse neighborhoods. So good news. Thank you to the governor, and thank you to our legislative leaders. Some good news as well from Washington, D.C. Again, because of the extraordinary leadership of Speaker Nancy Pelosi, we got the extension out of the House of Representatives. Still needs to go to the Senate and still needs the president's signature on our Jobs Now program. Remember, I've been talking about this, seems like for months now. This was a huge victory for the advocacy that we advanced and the extraordinary leadership that was once again exemplified by our speaker that made sure that the House voted this bill up and moved it forward to the Senate. $2.5 billion will be extended through this program. Again, this is the TANF program, without torturing everybody with what TANF stands for, even though it's temporary assistance to needed families. It was the money that goes through TANF, that goes to states like California, that is distributed through counties to provide 100% wage subsidies for people with dependents. I want to remind all of you, if you're unemployed and you have a dependent, call 311 or access our Jobs Now website. If you call 311, again, just ask for Jobs Now and find out if you're eligible. And if you're an employer, what have you been waiting for? If you're an employer in San Francisco and you actually want to hire someone without having to pay out of pocket their wage, find out more about this program by calling us again at 311 and asking about the Jobs Now program. 100% of that wage will be covered. And we have thousands of people pre-screened, ready to go to work. Again, over 2,100 in San Francisco alone, hundreds of thousands throughout the state of California that will benefit for this. And I want to encourage every single county leader to make sure they draw down these dollars. The big challenge is the folks don't know about this program. San Francisco was one of the first. LA County stepped up to the plate. I know Alameda County and some of the other counties are now starting to go after these dollars. Basically, this is money that we can draw down. The money is capped, but again, the drawdown won't happen, I believe, for at least another year, and this extension provides a framework through September 30th of 2011. So big success story for us, for Nancy Pelosi's advocacy. We will be forever grateful. Lives will be changed, food on people's tables, homes that will be maintained, and people that will be able to continue to provide for their family because of the successful extension through the Jobs Now program and through this federal funding. Third thing that deserves at least some acknowledgement and at least, well, I think a very positive thing was the remarkable collaborative effort that was undertaken in the last month or so with labor. I've said this on so many occasions, privately and publicly. Every single time we ask our public employees unions to step up, they step up, and they did it again. I know there was a lot of controversy around our proposal for a 37.5-hour week in terms of having a part-time job. And the notifications went out on that, I know created a lot of concern for our public employees. And I extended my appreciation and understanding of that frustration and angst, but I extended as well an argument for the necessity of doing that in the context of our $522 million budget shortfall. I also always said that if you have a better idea, I'm all ears. I'm not ideologically wed to that one proposal. Well, that's exactly what we did. We got together over the course of the last number of months, Bob Muscat and others sat around a table, and we came to an agreement, at least a temporary framework of an agreement that will bring to our public employees over the course of the next week or two that in essence gets 5% wage concession through furlough days in a way where we don't shut down government or shut the doors for city services, but basically try to smooth the impact to the public and substantially address our budget shortfall over the course of a 2-year agreement. We're talking close to $200 million, just shy of $200 million that labor community once again is contributing to protect vital services and to protect jobs. And so hats off to our public employees unions. We thank you for your commitment and your contribution to saving jobs and saving city services and stepping up yet again to help us with this unprecedented budget shortfall. It's a little over $40 million of the general fund this year, enterprise departments included, and an equivalent amount over the course of the next fiscal year. So a significant contribution. By no means does that get us out of the woods. $40 million on a $522 million budget shortfall, of general fund shortfall, is by no means, again, the entire solution, but a significant contribution, and one that I'm very thankful for and very appreciative. Still work to do, again, to get the rank and file to ultimately sign off on it, and so we don't want to necessarily celebrate the commitment and the deal yet. Final few words. I want to thank everybody who was out there this week celebrating another milestone, and that was over 50% of all our taxi cabs in San Francisco are running on renewable fuels, either compressed natural gas or running as hybrids. We're moving ahead of any other city in terms of converting our entire taxi cab fleet. The whole goal is to get to basically roughly 100%. They'll never be at 100% because of these ramp vans. We don't have the technology yet in terms of alternatives. We eventually will, but in the interim, we're leading by example, and I just want to thank our Taxi Cab Commission, now part of the MTA, and all the leadership of Paul Gillespie and others that had the vision to do this a number of years ago. We're very, very proud of that. So now it's time for your Facebook questions as well as your tweets. And the first one up is from Chris Brown, who says, what does San Francisco do to promote the use of renewable energy in the city? Well, I talked a little bit about it just a second ago about what we're doing for green taxi cabs. But as you may or may not know, Chris, we have a local global climate action plan to roll back our CO2 emissions 20% below 1990 levels by 2012. Already we've achieved a 7% reduction in our greenhouse gas emissions as we've grown our economy. And I know that's awkward to say in this recessionary environment, but the reality is we have moved this city forward as we've advanced in a very significant way our proposals through San Francisco Forward, which is our implementation plan and strategy to answer your question in terms of making San Francisco a model for all others in terms of environmental stewardship. We've done it through the most aggressive solar program in the country, the most aggressive green building requirements of any city in the country, the most aggressive alternative fuels program in the country. It's called a fats, oils, and grease program, a FOG program, where we pick up fats, oils, and grease through our restaurants and some of our concessions, and we convert it to biodiesel through a grease cycle program. We've done it through an aggressive energy efficiency programs, including we're about to roll out all the lights. You see these, what they call Cobra head lights. These are the lights out there on the streets, the Cobra heads. We're going to replace them with these old bulbs with new LEDs. We're going to start rolling that out in the next few months. We've done that through our programs around urban wind generation. Some strategies and ideas I'm going to talk a lot more about, hopefully next week, on our wave feasibility to do wave generation off the coast of California, technically off the coast of our own Ocean Beach. All kinds of things. Sum total of all of that, I think, is the most progressive environmental policies of any big city in the United States of America, and something to be very, very proud of. And don't forget, real tax incentives for green collar jobs. You don't have to pay a payroll tax if you create a job in this sector. If you're a green business, take advantage of our payroll tax exemptions. And if you are a green business, you never heard of them, call 311, our Small Business Assistance Center, and they'll let you know more about our program. And this one, Facebook question from Vince Courtney, who says, how many out-of-work San Franciscans, union or not, have found work through our Jobs Now program, and how big is it for San Francisco that we're getting this extended funding? Well, again, something that I connected in the top of this show. The Jobs Now program has been extended. 2,100 plus people in San Francisco have been afforded a job. Some of them have been laid off from their previous jobs for, in some cases, over 4 years. Literally, I met a guy, over 4 years have been out of work and now is doing, coincidentally, energy efficiency work through the Department of Environment, taking federal stimulus money for energy efficiency and connecting this federal stimulus Jobs Now program and going out there knocking on doors and making sure people save money and reduce their utilities bill by using some of these resources in an enlightened and thoughtful way. Vince, by the way, knows, I think, that Local 261, the laborers, one of my favorite public employees unions, because these are the folks that are out there on the front lines sweeping our streets. These are the gardeners and others. These are the backbone, really, of the workforce in San Francisco. They've been partnering with us, and that's why the reflection of unions, to see if we can help some of their members in the private sector as well as the public sector that may have been laid off over the years, provide them a framework to get back into the workforce through this Jobs Now program. So Vince, the bottom line is this is huge for the membership of public employees unions as well as private sector employee unions to help their membership get back into the workforce, and also to provide a framework where we're providing real jobs to all of our diverse communities. You know, 45% of the Jobs Now program, again, is going to the African American community, and we're reaching out to diverse communities, the Asian community, Latino community, and others to make sure these jobs are available to everybody. And that's another principle of this effort, is dealing with the issue of poverty, dealing with the issue of disparity, and dealing with the issue of unemployment at the same time, and being very aggressive in connecting our workforce training programs all together through this stimulus program. But again, the reason I appreciate the question, I talked about at the top of the hour and here through this Facebook question, is how fundamental this is to our recovery efforts to get this jobs program extended. Again, hats off to Speaker Pelosi and Dianne Feinstein and others. What a wonderful thing to be part of this and to have advocated for this extension and actually see it materialize, and to see the faces of the people that not only are going to have their jobs after September 30th of this year, but all of those, including many of you that may be watching, that will get jobs through the next year because of this remarkable appropriation of funds. So that's plenty for today. Look forward to being back with you next week, hopefully with as much good news as we had this week coming out of Sacramento and Washington, D.C. Take care, everybody.